we go. So I'm going to, okay, the rest of the evening is going to be, we're handing it over to the people that you really came here to hear tonight, our great poets from Kerry, and we have a selection from throughout the county. And it's my honour to introduce the first poet this evening, no stranger to us here in Listowel, a local man really, even though originally from Mayo, and I'm sure very excited about what's tomorrow. And so John McGrath, of course, you all know John, said formerly of Mayo, now living in Lizelton. John has published 2 books, 2 collections of poetry, Blue Sky Day in 2006 and Closing Circle in 2015. And I believe he's working on his 3rd collection. And of course, John is co-founder of the Ballydonoghue Bardic Festival and also of the Shanachie Writers Group, who meet here in the museum regularly. And he's also involved in the Poetry in the Park group. So without further ado, as they say, I'll hand you over to John. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. I am delighted to be part of this Listowel Poetry Town official launch, and I'm in illustrious company, so I won't waste anybody's time. I'll go straight into my first poem, which is called After the Races. Now, most of you will know that the highlight of the Listowel calendar is Races Week, which is in a couple of weeks' time, and Billy Keane famously referred to the Monday after the races as the most depressing day of the year, which was really the inspiration for this poem, After the Races. After the races, people get depressed. The days close in, mist wraps round us, suffocates our will to celebrate. Streetlights fail to penetrate the gloom. Sandals gather mold in wardrobes. We cling to TV listings, turn to drink, dark to match our mood. Food stewed sticks to our ribs, clotted carbohydrates to stave off hypothermia. And still, I love this time of year. No sudden fear of change that takes me unawares or underdressed. I've got my woolly vest, my scarf, my bobble hat, my dog to walk. Rain and snow can't keep me cooped indoors. But if they do, I'll sleep till lunchtime. Dream of Christmas, moonlight, ramboys, read a book, hog the fire, hibernate, sip another whiskey punch and wait. Thank you. And slightly more serious poem, my tribute to all the poets and the poems and the poetry and collections that I have had the joy of sharing and enjoying over the years, starting with my mother's introduction for me to Yeats when I was about 4 years of age, and continuing right through to the present day, particularly with the poets and writers of North Kerry, and many of them on the panel here tonight. It's called To the Poets. I reach for you when thrushes sing, and in the darkest silence, you are dancing and dreaming, laughing lines that ring and spin and tap their heels until the reel is done. Your whispered wisdom wraps around me like a lullaby. I reach for you when magpies call their prophecies from raucous woods. The robin and the hawthorn wears your blood. I see your smile on children's faces, feel your fingers in the touch of friends, taste your sadness in their bitter tears, and in their fears, the echo of your anger. I reach for you at dawn when skylarks sing, and when the night envelops me, you fill my heart with light. Thank you. And now it's my privilege to hand you over to Eileen Sheehan, my friend, wonderful poet from Killarney, Rathmore, I think originally, who has published several volumes and has presented lots of wonderful workshops here in Listowel, and more recently this morning in Fresh from Ballybunion. So Eileen Sheehan, thank you.
Thank you, John. You moved me one townland over there.
Did I?
From Rathmore, so I'll have to move myself a little bit to Scartiglen because they might disown me out there.
Sorry.
Nothing wrong with Rathmore though. I feel doubly blessed really because John B said everyone who came from Kerry is blessed, but I feel doubly blessed because I have two spiritual homes in the county really. I live in Killarney, I've lived here most of my life. So the first poem I'll read is actually set there. It's set if anyone has ever done the boat trip from Rosscastle across to Inishfallen Island. And if you haven't done it, you should. Setting out. The unsteady sway of the boat as it moved across grey water had me gripping with both hands to the wooden seat. I watched the castle growing smaller until it was only a dark smudge receding into a widening view of water, shoreline, trees. And the fear left me on that stretch of open lake as a light breeze drew back my hair and the spray's touch was gentle as your fingers tracing the contours of my face. The boatman joked that he had drowned no one so far that morning. I thought of bones embraced by water, caressed by weeds, of swimmers who never made it home. Below me, I saw a woman looking up from another world. I knew there were urgent stories she had come to tell, and I was all attention. Her face flashing past the boat in a continuous reel as we neared the island. I smiled down at her. In the shallows, she disappeared. With the engine cut, there was only the idle slabber of water against the boat, the knock, knock of wood on stone. I stepped out onto the pier like that first time, stepping into your arms, safer than anything I had known. Of course, I was born and grew up in Scartiglen, and my creative imagination keeps returning to that landscape, really, no matter, not that I ever try and get away from it, but it just goes back there all by itself. So this poem, which is an elegy for my dad, has all that landscape as background. My father, long dead. My father, long dead, has become air, become scent of pipe smoke, of turf smoke, of resin, become light and shade on the river, become foxglove, buttercup, tree bark, become silence, places of calm, become corncrake, lost from the meadow, become badger at dusk, deer in the thicket, become grass on the road to the castle, become mist on the turret, become dark-haired hero in a story written by a dark-haired child. Thank you. Our next poet now, it's a great pleasure to introduce John W. Sexton. John lives in Kinmare, but John's poetic imagination is not confined to any one location. In fact, I would think it's true to say it ranges across this world, the next world, and across several galaxies in between. He's radio scriptwriter, a children's novelist. The late Tommy Frank O'Connor once said of him that if you placed a cloak of respectability on his shoulders, it would burst into flame. His most recent collections are the most recent two of his 7 collections of poetry is Futures Past from Salmon Poetry and Visions at Temple Glanton from Revival Press, which came out last year. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Eileen. And hello, everyone. And it's a great pleasure to be part of Poetry Town. And hearty congratulations to our Poet Laureates in Listowel, Dairena Ní Chinnéide. A great thing to see that Listowel has a Poet Laureate, and let's hope that this continues every year. These poems I'm going to read now have no titles. Each is located in the every place of Kerry, so you should be able to find yourself, hopefully, in the poem. That's the only hope we can have for any poem. Your father's 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 father is long dead. You never knew him. You never even heard speak of him, not even his name. He calls to your door. You recognize him immediately. He is wearing a coat made of earwigs, all of them clinging madly to each other. The earwigs are fraying at the hem. Some fall to the ground in your hallway. You see the moon now, just one grey eye peeping out from its face. Come out with me to the half-faced moon, says your father's 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 father. You follow him without a hesitation. Your feet break the dewy grass as you make your way down the meadow. Something stirs low on the ground, its face shining palely in the half-faced moonlight. Come meet with me, the horned badger, says your father's 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 father. You look again. The pale stripe on the badger's face is lumping up. It rises skywards, a thin spectral horn of off-white fur. Come climb with me, the horn of the horned badger, says your father's 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 father. He steps on the badger's back and shimmies up the thin, furry horn. You follow him up all the way to the half-faced moon. Earwigs fall down from the hem of his coat, gather on your crown as a writhing cap. Come dress with me in the cloth of the tailor's tailor, says your father's 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 father. All of these poems, I must add, actually happened. The sun lights the birch leaves greener. At a clearing, a fox stands before you. You remember him well, can see the mark you left in his skull with your stick, can see the eye hanging from his face from the day you brained him. You had killed him that day on a rocky outcrop where the dogs had cornered him. Good morning, says the dead fox. Good morning, you say. You have no dogs with you today, says the dead fox. No, you say. One took poison left out for a fox, and the poison killed him. One died from old age. One went out a day and never returned. The pupil in the eye, hanging from the dead fox's face, shines green as birchlight. Let me become your dog, says the dead fox. You are surprised. You want me to domesticate you, to bring you home? No, says the dead fox. Let me be your dog, and I will guide you to the place where the lost dogs gather. I will bring you into my den and domesticate you. This is a fair bargain for taking my life. I can return the dead to you. You follow the dead fox. Your mind is filled with understanding. You and the fox step into green. A multitudinous barking tunes you to the bone. Our next poet is a very dear friend, a great poet, an elder statesman of Kerry poetry. Of all his many achievements, essays, prose, poetry, song, ballad, sonnets, I think personally that his greatest achievement will be his translations. His most recent translations were of Sean O'Riordan. And the thing about Gabriel's translations is, like his poetry, they preserve the rhythms and the rhymes and the physicality of the song of the original. So everybody, it's my great pleasure to introduce Gabriel Fitzmaurice.
Thank you very, very much, John. Elder statesman, you could also call that an old fogey, as my daughter calls me. It's great to be here. Welcome to Listowel, to the Poetry Town of Listowel, and to the week that's ahead of us. Welcome to all it's an honor to be among all the fine poets here. And I was going to read you a different first poem, but as John W. just mentioned there, Sean O'Riordan, yeah, I have a go at Sean O'Riordan. The poem I'm going to, my translation, I read a little bit of the poem, Oscailga, and then I read my translation. It's Sula Donna, Brown Eyes. And the story is that Sean, he never married, he was a lonely man. He suffered from tuberculosis all his life. And he had a great nosk with Cortagina, where Dairena is from, and all that. And he must have been in love at least once, because you'll gather that from the poem here. And Sola Donna, I read the first and last verse of it, Oscailga, and then I read my translation. Sola Donna, Islehi na Sola Donna sa a kimi bleas gemik, by Hangavalya Halyak te a Sola a holding tort. A bina will de heri town, Gomaran smuttar nas, tri vinenu is firinu on mahir Gudian mak. And my translation in homage to Sean O'Riordan, one of my favorite poets, is Brown Eyes. These brown eyes I see are hers, now in her son's head. It was a thing most beautiful that you inherited. It was a meeting privilege with her mind and body too, for 1,000 years would pass so swift if they but looked at you. Because those eyes belong to her, it's strange that he has them. I'm ashamed to face her now because she happened in a man. When she and they were one to me, little did I think those eyes would change to masculine that spoke so womanly. Where is a source of madness that's any worse than this? Do I have to change my dialogue now that they are his? She wasn't the first to see with them any more than he, nor will he be the last who will wear them. Is this all there is of eternity, that something of us lives on, becoming masculine and feminine from the mother to the son? That's Sean O'Riordan. Or did the second poem I'd like to read is a sonnet. As you know, it's got 14 lines. As Jackie Faulkner, the famous traveling man who used to go into John B. Keane's, said to John B. one time, Christgate, he said, poetry is bad enough without it being long. So this is only 14 lines, so I'll be delighted to hear that. It was John B. Keane actually that got me and my generation writing sonnets. He threw down a challenge to us many years ago, and several poets of my generation took up the challenge of writing sonnets, and I owe that to John B. Keane to mention that. This is, I suppose, my most popular poem. It's one that has been used at weddings, funerals, anniversaries, birthdays, all the rest. And it's used by gays and lesbians and straights because it's non-gender specific. I read it, one of the first times I read it was when Billy Keane organised an event to support the gay rights, the gay marriage referendum. And when I had it read, the gays and the lesbians came up and said, "This is really our poem." Well, I said I wrote it for my wife, but you're welcome to it as well. So here it is, sonnet called "Just to be beside you is enough." Just to be beside you is enough. Just to make your breakfast, tea and toast. To help you with the wire, that kind of stuff. Just to get the papers in your post. To hold you in my arms in calm embrace. Just to sit beside you with the fire. Just to trace my fingers on your face is more to me than all of youth's desire. Just to lie beside you in the night. To hear you breathe in peace before I sleep. To wake beside you in the morning light, in the love we sow together that we reap. Together we have taken smooth and rough. Just to be beside you is enough. And now it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you a great friend of mine, Dairena Ní Chinnéide, as Portuguese, as on board Keane, ta Connie is about a more Keane anyway, and ish. Agus bhfuil mé léir dós ag an féle beag verliekte aun agus is sár i ceann irí múra ní hamháin gaeilge agus Corcaigíne ach ceann irí múra na héireann. Is mór an ordom fáilte chorimpi mar fille ife goil Listowel, ní an gael na gom Listowel Poet Laureate ach déanhig fille ife goil Listowel an job. Dairena Ní Chinnéide is a great friend of mine, and I in welcoming her as Laureate Poet of Listowel, I welcome the NAS, you'd say in Irish, the relationship between West Kerry, the Blasket Islands, and the Corcaigíne writers and the Listowel writers, because it goes back quite a long way. And Dairena, by accepting the Poet Laureateship, has advanced that hugely. I mean, we must say that Brian McMahon famously translated Peg, that Tim Enright famously translated Thrown Off on an Anoiga by Micheál O'Goheen, and I've translated Micheál de Morga and Bernie Long and Mike Danny O'Shea. So I'm delighted to welcome and pay tribute to Dairena for accepting the post, and long may the connection between the Gaeilge and Listowel survive. She's a writer, poet, former broadcast journalist. She worked for Radio Kerry, Century Radio, and Radio na Gaeltachta. I have counted 10 collections. I think Jimmy Moloney said there were 11. I have 9 as Gaeilge anyway, from her first one on Trodiagus down to Ella, from Clore Connacht through Cush Game and Ireland House, and of course the one in 2019 as Béarla in English, entirely in English, from the famous and great Salmon Poetry. She's had bursaries from the Arts Council, Eileen the Gaeltachta, and she was a recipient of a Patrick and Catherine Kavanagh Fellowship. Theo Dorgan has famously said that hers are poems of rueful sorrow, reflection, earned intelligence, and delight. Dairena Ní Chinnéide, take the stage.
Thank you, Gabriel. We're mean maggot. It's a bit of a tall order now to be asked as a West Kerry woman to write poems about Listowel, but I did my level best, and I'm going to jump feet first in now and read, which was the first poem I wrote. I was asked to write one in English and translate it into Irish, but I thought these are 2 different languages and they're 2 different spaces. So I wrote 2 poems. So here we go, Listowel. O huige géirí bíon srutha líana fé shras ann ag rileis na cianta, splódar pín á chur scríbin rigach rás as rachar daine. Chappel is sport san gaul is déine, caid córá is cúnta scríte, Listowel na laich na leabhars na líthe, ón dampolín bán is ocras daine. Fial ban lúvik ihe trége, in iscí na féle tá dríochtas éigse, Scial gach sráid is marga dianta, banna bó blachta ceúra scialta. Stáitse de thug de rámaí ilte, an cortín ard is máistrí síltethe, na scríóirí snasta a bharc is a héal dún, luach a god saithir, severis, tréanver. Is fuidan ná gélan an chaid go héasca, mórtas, áte, treve is bréhere, Listowel, daingan na bannerí leanta. And that's the Lagan Gaeilge, and drum roll, here we come with the Lagan Beerla. I went up to Listowel, I was wandering around, I was talking to people, I was doing all sorts of things. I had a great time and it was a real honour. And I want to thank Poetry Ireland and Kerry County Council and the local committee and everybody. Real blew me away now to be asked to do this. So this is what I felt in my heart when I did a bit of thinking. Through the pavement cracks of this market town, old tales flow like the river. You can tell the ghosts of stories. Ordinary people going about their days as swallows swoop above the field. McMahon, Keane, Kennelly, Fitzmaurice, Walsh, names fall from lips at every turn, loose words, letting phrases dance around the square. Literature finds its happy home here among the half-empty pubs, the streets that sing of this solitary trade. Words in a North Kerry window display tell of those past and yet to come on a quiet summer's day. The three sisters' rivers blend the lofty thoughts, the plain spoken words of everyday life, loose amongst the ragged reeds, lying on a bed of soft syllables, longing to be spoken. Gormagav. And I was asked to read one more poem extra because I don't know why, but Gabriel talked about Deleted, which was my English collection. And I think this one is fitting. It's called The Chieftain's Call. And it's an homage to those who have passed, I suppose. And so they go, the chieftains past. They may have made challenging parents, lost in their minds, their art. They loved like they thought they ought to. I call them chieftains too, the mothers who created art between cooking and rearing, making and crafting, weaving legacies. Children's minds have off-kilter memories, where structure means chaos. Creation casts loss, like living on another frequency. My chieftains have passed on, but more live with me alive. Books like centuries shine brighter than a headstone, wondering how we live our lives in frequent isolation. We withdraw to continue to create, to craft something new, to learn with respect from the chieftains. Thank you.
Oh my, I'm speechless. They're fabulous. Oh, Dairena, your poem was absolutely wonderful. I don't know what to say. Beautiful poems. We're honoured to have such two new poems for our town that we can share with the world. And thank you. And all our poets, they evoked great thoughts and memories and fabulous. Just a lovely evening. It flew by quicker than I actually had expected. I don't know if anybody wants to come in on the conversation or wants to add anything to what it's back to gallery view now, if that's okay with you folks. Anybody wants to say anything or add to the evening? If not, I might just, I see Matt with his finger up. I wouldn't doubt you, Matt. You want to unmute yourself if you're going to.
No, yeah.
There you go.
You first stop them. Unmuted, Matt. So, Cogordas Lato Cree, Dairena. Go specialta and dog gone sin accession, Peter or house or fud. Agus some man abroad was bet mar Mac Mooney in a honey Listowel, ni o Gucus me o Listowel. As Galavik me, Martian Plain is grow more in the Cree, the winter Listowel. Agus hook to Anna Honor to Listowel. Agus Anna Oruna fud the atmosphere as Hatimple and Ballishaw or Kerma and winter Listowel and Kedla. Go Margaret.
Matt. So before we end the evening, I just might mention a few of the events that are coming up during the week that you'd might like to come along to. Some of them are online, but some of them are actually in person, which you'd be delighted to hear. And I think include the link there in the chat somewhere to the website. But we're delighted that Dairena is going to be directing 2 workshops this Monday and Tuesday evening. Now they will be online, so there's still a few places left on those, so do spread the word. Maura said in the chat as well, first thing tomorrow morning, we're kicking off with Gabriel, who's going to be reading some of these really rotten rhymes. So if you have any younger family members or not so young, it's open to everybody to come along at 10 o'clock in the morning, and Gabriel will be joined by Godfrey Coppinger, a wonderful storyteller, originally from California, now based in Listowel. On Sunday at 4 p.m, we're delighted to have an Irish language event with some wonderful Irish language poets in Listowel and surrounds, and Court na Féile will kick off at 4 with Dairena, our Poet Laureate, but also with Seamus Barrow, O'Sullivan, Siobhan Conal and Matt. We heard Matt O'Manig, Matt Mooney, the mighty Matt, and that will be a lovely event in St. John's Theatre. I don't want to mention everything, but just maybe some of the other highlights. Poetry in the Park, our wonderful poet gathering of poets, will be for the first time in nearly a year and a half, be back in person in the Garden of Europe on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, which is a beautiful setting. We do have an alternative venue if it's raining, but hopefully it won't be, because it would be a lovely setting for a poetry reading. And we're delighted that our own John McGrath, a wonderful Listowel poet, will be doing a session online on Thursday evening, Poetry's Place, where he explores the sense of place in various poets' poems. So they're just some of the highlights. I know I'm going to miss out on people. I know Mike Galler is doing a haiku workshop. We have schools workshops. We have poetry windows. We have poetry in cafes, with poetry all over the place. So check it all online there at the Poetry Ireland's Listowel page, and I'm sure there's going to be something for everyone. And spread the word to those who may not normally read poetry or listen to poetry, to tap their toe or dip their toe into the week that is. We hope you enjoy the week, and that as I don't know who said it earlier, that this will become an annual event for Listowel. It would be wonderful. So
well done, Cara.
Not at all. And Maura, listen, you too, because I know the amount of work Maura was out putting up road signs this morning with her husband. God love him, he was roped into it. So
there's a fear of them. Can I just mention one thing, Cara, because I see that Margaret Sheehan is here, and Peter Given, Pat's dad, and just to say, we're giving out some poems in cafes and chemists and the shops around Listowel, and there was 2 local poets chosen. We have lots of other generic poets from all over Ireland, but there was 2 chosen for Listowel, and they were Margaret Sheehan, who's here on Zoom, and also Pat Given. So we're delighted that we've 2 of our locals featured as we give out those. You'll get them all as you go into cafes and chemists around the place. But and Cara, thanks for organising tonight. It was brilliant. Well done.
Not at all. And while you're saying that, we got 18 poems in from 18 different poets that we have printed on posters, and they'll be up on the shop windows around Listowel. So again, if you're going shopping, passing a window, your friends are, just stop and read the poem. There's some wonderful poems, a lot of them about Listowel or in that sort of general theme, but others not so. And I know some of the poets that have contributed to that are here tonight, and I want to thank you so much for doing that for us. We really appreciate it. So I suppose we might end the evening here. I want to thank Jimmy. Thank you so much for coming on, Jimmy. I know you're a busy man, and for joining with us tonight. To thank all our wonderful poets from far and near for sharing some beautiful, beautiful words with us. And for you, Dairena, for composing such fabulous poems. We are so lucky to get two. I think most of the other towns have just one poem, and we have two. So yeah, we are definitely blessed with that. So as I said, I'm sure you'll all be here at 10 o'clock in the morning to hear really rotten rhymes, but if not, we'll see you at some stage. We'll see you at some stage over the week. So thank you all, and
thanks, Cara.
good night. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Good night. Thanks,
Bye,
Cara.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Never switched off the recording, of course.
Hit the red button.